Understanding the machinery of their ego gives you the blueprint to its collapse. Think of it like a chess match where the narcissist believes they control all the pieces, yet doesn't realize you can see 3 moves ahead. Their predictable patterns become their greatest vulnerability. In this video, I'll reveal 7 Machiavellian tactics that cause narcissists to self-destruct without you having to throw a single punch. These are psychological weapons that turn a narcissist's own nature against them, leaving you in control of a game they believed was rigged in their favor from the start. If you're ready to master the art of silent domination, hit like and subscribe, because power favors the prepared mind. What if the narcissist in your life isn't as powerful as they appear? What if their dominance, their apparent control, and their emotional tyranny are all part of an elaborate magic trick, one that requires your unwitting participation to succeed? The narcissist's greatest achievement is creating the illusion of invulnerability. They construct a facade of superiority and control that appears impenetrable, but their entire psychological structure depends on your emotional investment. Their false reality, where they're always right, always in control, exists only because you grant it legitimacy. Each defensive response, each hurt reaction, each engagement with their provocations provides the energy that powers their machinery. Picture this. Your narcissistic colleague makes a dismissive comment about your project during a meeting. When you respond with a detailed defense, they smirk and find new flaws. The interaction leaves you drained while they appear energized. This isn't coincidental, it's transactional. They've harvested your emotional energy while giving nothing in return. Behind their grandiose display lies a profound emptiness, a void where a stable sense of self should exist. Their confidence and charm mask an internal absence, creating an insatiable hunger for validation that can never be fully satisfied. This dependency creates their fundamental weakness. Without your emotional engagement, whether admiration, fear, anger, or hurt, their identity begins to dissolve. They're like an actor whose performance loses meaning without an audience. Their castle of superiority is built on the shifting sands of others' reactions, crumbling when that foundation is removed. Their greatest fear isn't your resistance, it's your indifference. When you remain emotionally unaffected, you stop feeding the illusion, forcing them to face the emptiness they've desperately avoided. This reveals something crucial. The narcissist's power is borrowed from you. They haven't mastered mind control, they've learned to exploit predictable human responses. Their strength comes from knowing which buttons will generate the emotional reactions they need. The critical illusion all narcissists depend on is your belief that they control the interaction when, in reality, your reactions give them that control. They need you to believe they're playing chess while you're playing checkers, when they're simply counting on your predictable responses. This insight provides the blueprint to disable their machinery without confrontation. You don't need to prove your worth. You simply need to understand the mechanism of their power and withdraw the fuel. The Machiavellian approach isn't about attacking the narcissist. It's about understanding the rules of engagement better than they do. They believe themselves to be the puppet master, yet they're dependent on strings you can cut at any time. This isn't about becoming manipulative yourself. It's recognizing manipulation and refusing to be its unwitting accomplice. When you see through the illusion, you regain control over your emotional responses. Their provocations become not personal attacks demanding defense, but mechanical attempts to extract reactions they need to maintain their self-image. Having recognized the narcissist's need for your emotional energy, it's time to explore the most counterintuitive power move available to you: complete emotional detachment. What appears to be surrender is actually your greatest weapon, one that turns their hunger for reaction into the very thing that undermines their carefully constructed facade. Think of emotional detachment as adopting a strategic Machiavellian stance, creating psychological distance that destabilizes the narcissist's entire operating system. Picture yourself in a heated argument where the narcissist hurls accusations, expecting you to defend yourself frantically. Instead, you respond with calm neutrality. "I understand that's your perspective," and watch their momentary confusion as they search for the emotional reaction that never comes. This form of tactical neutrality means consciously choosing when and how you express yourself rather than being manipulated into predictable reactions. You become a blank screen instead of the emotional canvas they depend on. When you cease providing emotional reactions, the narcissist experiences psychological starvation. Their interaction model collapses without your emotional energy, like a fire deprived of oxygen, gradually dimming until only embers remain. The empty space where your reaction should be forces them to confront the emptiness they've spent a lifetime avoiding. You must become emotionally invisible, as the psychological principle suggests. When a narcissist launches a verbal attack designed to wound you, observe their behavior with clinical detachment. See their provocations as algorithmic attempts to extract a predictable response rather than meaningful personal attacks. Practicing this detachment requires viewing their tactics like a predictable play where you know all the lines. You transform from an actor in their drama to an observer studying behavioral patterns with academic interest, analyzing without becoming emotionally entangled. As you maintain psychological distance, the narcissist will escalate their behavior, pushing boundaries further and attempting increasingly extreme provocations. They'll lash out, they'll escalate. That's the test. If you flinch, you lose. If you stay silent, you win. This escalation demonstrates your approach is working. The gray rock method exemplifies this strategy, becoming uninteresting and unresponsive by providing brief, factual responses without emotional coloring while avoiding sharing personal details that could become ammunition. Your goal becomes making yourself an unappealing target for their manipulation. This escalation works to your advantage as the narcissist's desperate attempts to extract reactions make their manipulative tactics increasingly visible to others. Their behavior grows erratic and transparent, revealing the machinery behind the mask. The narcissist's response follows a predictable pattern: disbelief, irritation, then intensified control efforts through guilt-tripping, gaslighting, love-bombing, or aggression. They will squirm. They will push every button. They will call you cold, unloving, selfish. That's a sign you're winning. This approach isn't about cruelty. It's about reclaiming your psychological autonomy. By refusing to supply the emotional fuel they require, you step out of a dysfunctional system. The narcissist cannot maintain their inflated self-image without your participation, and your neutrality forces them to confront this dependency. The narcissist who can no longer extract emotional energy from you faces a crisis. But what they truly cannot survive is chaos in their carefully ordered world. What you might not realize is that beneath their manipulation lies an intricate mental roadmap, a detailed prediction system they've built by studying your reactions over time. Narcissists execute carefully constructed scripts based on knowing your reactions. Every interaction follows a formula perfected through repetition. They've cataloged your triggers, memorized your emotional patterns, and can predict your responses before you have them. This predictability forms the cornerstone of their control. Their manipulation relies on reliable patterns, like a chess player who's memorized your moves 10 steps ahead. They know when you'll defend, when you'll concede, and precisely how to position their pieces to trap you emotionally. Game theory reveals something crucial. When one player consistently varies their strategy, the other player cannot optimize their approach. Applied to narcissistic relationships, this means systematically changing your responses in unpredictable ways. Sometimes engage enthusiastically, other times withdraw completely. When they expect an emotional outburst, respond with analytical calm. When they anticipate defensiveness, ask curious questions instead. Consider this example. A narcissist might criticize your appearance, expecting tears or anger. Instead, you respond with a neutral, interesting perspective and change the subject. The next time, you might laugh it off. The third time, you might ask them why they're focused on appearances. Each response disrupts their pattern recognition. This strategic inconsistency creates psychological static in their mental model. They've built manipulation tactics on reliable patterns that suddenly no longer apply. It's like shifting from chess to poker mid-game. Their memorized openings become useless when you're playing a different game entirely. The psychological impact is profound. Their cognitive resources become overwhelmed as they struggle to recalibrate. They enter a confusion state where familiar triggers produce unexpected results. This creates significant decision fatigue as they exhaust themselves seeking patterns where none exist. You'll notice them growing visibly frustrated. Where once they moved confidently, now they hesitate and make mistakes. These errors reveal a manipulation system breaking down. As one expert explains, when faced with unpredictability, narcissists may make critical errors, revealing their true nature. The power comes from this approach's invisible nature. You're not directly confronting them, simply varying responses that don't align with their mental model of you. This creates cognitive dissonance they struggle to resolve. While your responses appear random to them, you maintain clarity about your strategy. You're making conscious choices guided by understanding which approach most effectively disrupts their expectations. This strategy works particularly well after emotional detachment because the narcissist is already destabilized. They desperately seek ways to re-engage your emotions but can't predict which approach might work. When narcissists can't adapt, they often escalate to more extreme behaviors, attempting to force predictable reactions. This escalation makes their manipulative tactics increasingly obvious to others. Their carefully crafted phrases and accusations designed for specific reactions fall flat when those reactions don't materialize as expected. Silence is powerful, but strategic reflection takes this power to an entirely new level. When you hold up a psychological mirror to a narcissist, you're forcing them to confront something they've spent their entire lives avoiding: themselves. This mirror technique strips away their carefully constructed illusions in ways they cannot defend against because the reflection comes from their own actions, not your interpretation of them. Consider what happens in the space where your expected reaction should be. The narcissist launches a verbal assault, anticipating your hurt, anger, or defensiveness. Instead, they encounter a calm, reflective surface that simply returns their behavior to them unaltered. This creates a psychological vacuum that narcissists find profoundly disturbing, a silence that speaks volumes about what's really happening in the interaction. The mirror technique operates on a fundamental principle. Narcissists require constant external validation to maintain their self-image. When you become a psychological mirror, reflecting their behavior back without commentary, you create a reality where they must see themselves without customary distortions. This approach is active and deliberate. When a narcissist attempts manipulation, respond with carefully crafted questions that redirect attention back to their behavior. For example, narcissist: "You're always making everything about yourself. I can never talk about my problems." You: "What makes you feel I'm not listening to your concerns?" Or when they attempt to gaslight you. Narcissist: "I never said that. You're always twisting my words." You: "Why would you believe I'm intentionally misunderstanding you?" These reflections present the narcissist with an uncomfortable choice: either acknowledge their manipulative behavior or escalate to more obvious manipulation. This escalation works in your favor, as it makes their patterns increasingly visible to everyone around you. In group settings, this technique is particularly effective. When you reflect rather than react, others begin to see the disconnect between the narcissist's words and actions. The narcissist might claim to be concerned about your well-being while clearly attempting to undermine you, a contradiction that becomes obvious when you simply mirror back their statements. The strategic use of silence within this technique amplifies its power. By documenting manipulative patterns without immediate confrontation, you develop a comprehensive understanding of how the narcissist operates. This knowledge becomes powerful leverage for protection. As you maintain this reflective stance, The narcissist begins to reveal inconsistencies in their carefully constructed narrative. They contradict previous statements. They make claims that don't align with reality. These cracks in their facade become apparent to others in their orbit. The discomfort this creates for the narcissist is profound. Imagine the growing panic as their carefully crafted illusions dissolve before their eyes. Their usual tactics, intimidation, victimhood, grandiosity, fall flat against the mirror's unflinching reflection. What they experience is psychological vertigo, the dizzying sensation of a false self-image collapsing. When you reflect rather than absorb, when you question rather than defend, you fundamentally change the dynamics they depend on. This often leads to what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, a profound wound to their sense of self that can trigger intense reactions ranging from rage to collapse. While narcissistic injuries create temporary vulnerability, there exists a far more subtle approach that paradoxically gives narcissists exactly what they appear to want, or so they believe. The art of minimal engagement operates not through confrontation or complete avoidance, but through the careful rationing of your attention.